Paintball Nerd.
So we have media moguls here, Rye Guy and Dylan Fout. Dude, what do you guys think what do you think we can do to evolve paintball media?
Give everybody more money.
That makes sense.
I mean, money buys tools. First off, Darren and Matt Ingalls have done an amazing job as of far to both promote and grow the media of the NXL. Matt Ingalls dealing with, all the flyers, the event posting. Like every time you see a photo with an overlay of the score and end result match instantly in an event, that's Matt Ingalls at a laptop with his crew of like 5 guys out there snapping photos and bringing them back for real time. And then you have Darren and his master trailer just going away with like his whole minion crew that they're doing all sorts of things. They got cables flying, they got scissor lifts, they got guys in the back just always putting gear together. They got Dylan running around with a gimbal like, yo! I mean, those guys have already done a ton. To improve on it, honestly, would just be to get more viewers. Getting more viewers that's where it all comes to a head, right? So all that those guys have done is invest, and they've got to protect their investment and protect their return to keep doing it. Yeah. But we could also argue that until we can get other outlets in here besides, because Ghost Sports has the rights to the pro field, nobody else can live stream it, right? So like imagine if I could put a stream deck on my camera at the event and live stream. Like imagine if if just creators had a little more freedom. I'm not saying companies, but let's just start at the creator level. At the end of the day, Coca-Cola coming in with $50 million is what everybody thinks they want, but it's not, because when Coca-Cola comes in with $50 million, it's now Coca-Cola's. It's no longer paintball. It is now whatever fits the Coca-Cola branding mold. And I say Coca-Cola is a very generalized name for sponsorship, right? Let's insert whoever you think. If it's Amazon, Walmart, Coca-Cola, whatever. Once someone comes in with a large sum of money, if it's 50 to 500 million, whatever, and that's the number we're talking for something like this, they now own it. It's theirs. Because if not, they leave with their money. That's just how it works, right? If I'm going to spend that much money, I want control. A way to grow without that money, without that outside throw, is we've already seen it through Reels. And you can have whatever opinion you want as a content creator when it comes to Reels. Yeah, I hate them too. Trust me. I don't want to make another.
We got 3 reels on the screen right now.
3 reels. Look, we're even reeling in real time. Oh, mind blown. But like if you look at what Reels have done, right? Like everybody's like, let's get paintball back on ESPN. Reels did that. I mean, was it on live ESPN? Maybe not. But was it on Sports Center getting 80, 90, 120 million views 2 or 3 times this year? Absolutely. I mean, so Reels have already done it, right? Reels have shown us how we can expose the sport more. Making people understand the sport's the secondary goal, right? Like giving people content that educates them has to come after content that entertains them. And this is where we're going to split hairs with a lot of creatives, right? A lot of creatives believe that the reels that are shown, the angles, the tight end cropness, it's not showing the true dynamics of the game. It's not showing how it's played. And they could be right. I'd actually probably say they are right. It's not. But they're not meant to educate. When I watch ESPN, I have no idea how to play basketball, but I know LeBron just slammed that ball through a hole, right? When I watch ESPN, I got no idea how to throw a football, but I know Joe Burrow just did a little spin and dance when he tossed it, right? Like the highlights we see in the sports that we say we want to mimic and emulate, like when I say mimic and emulate, I talk about get to their height level, and if it's funding, if it's exposure, whatever. None of what you see outside of the broadcast of the game is educational of the game, right? We have to build entertaining moments to draw people to want to watch the live broadcast. And that's just the facts. That's what ESPN does for the NFL. That's what ESPN does for the NBA. That's what they do for the MLB, right? I know so many people who watch Sports Center and watch these sports who have never played them. I know a lot of people that watch Sports Center and they ain't never thrown a football, shoot a basketball, or thrown a baseball.
True.
But they watch all three sports. They know the rules better than probably most people playing, and they know the stats more than the players do. And that's what you have to create, right? That at the end of the day, it's a fandom, and it's a fandom beyond players, because the players themselves aren't enough to push that level, because there's just not at any one given time and we're talking about tournament paintball. We can get into like scenario magfed, and that's a whole nother world. That can be on a whole nother level. I hate to say it. I love tournament paintball, but we're limited. We're limited in what our market reach is. And I think a lot of how you change that, you start changing the exposure, is creators and Go Sports start working together in a like harmonious, beneficial, mutually beneficial relationship where, you know, Darren picks 2 or 3 guys like me and Verbal and Enrique and puts a stream deck on our camera. And what a stream deck is, Dylan can probably explain better, but it's essentially a device. So a stream deck is it's $1,000 to $5,000 device that allows whatever I'm filming to be broadcasted in live time to Darren to be able to stream. So like when Dylan is out on the field with a gimbal behind the box and he's got this camera with no wires attached to it, it has a stream deck on it that's allowing the signal to broadcast in real time to Darren. And you could put that on the creator's camera if they agreed. And imagine how many angles you could do, right? Like, because we would already argue that reels, that guys like me, Verbal, Enrique, Ryan Moffitt, and the list continues to go on, Dylan, and so on, generate shows. And Dylan said that, bro, you edit a lot of reels. They show an angle that the webcast doesn't, because the webcast's purpose is to show the sport in a way that the game's being played, right? It's to show the whole sport. So I think by starting to add angles that show the entertainment a little better, you bring the crashing NASCAR fan in, you bring the guy who wants to see the car wreck, right? The other thing is pink paint, bright shells. Let's see the paint flying, right? These stealth balls, I understand, right? It makes the players harder to see paint coming in or not, but we unfortunately don't have a singular ball that a viewer can follow the whole way through. So like if we could use bright colored paint, we could have a better visualization.
Yeah, I don't know what the answer is, because I think we have to separate broadcast from like creator media, which would be like YouTube, user generated content, Facebook, real generated content like Enrique, Ryan. And I mean, like, we really have to look towards the future. And I think Darren already is doing this. It's like almost like painfully obvious and kind of scary that like we're all going to be, the broadcast is going to be replaced by autonomous filmmaking devices. Like, that's not something that's Darren told me. These are all my own opinions. I'm speaking completely for myself, but like the reality is like it's trending towards that. It's cheaper. It will be more effective. You will have more angles. There will be no human error. There will be no human fatigue. Like, these things will work all day, all the time. We'll have tons of them on the field. That's my gut tells me that, my intuition, my research, and my expertise. But like, I do think that having more angles on the field, like Rye was saying, with stream decks, it sounds like would be a really good way to tell the story of how a point is won. But I think it's less about the equipment, and with the broadcast specifically, it's less about the equipment and it's more about the format of the game. X-Ball is so fucking fun to play. Like, it's ridiculously fun to play, but it is almost impossible to film. Like, what you're requiring, dude, you need an army, and we do have a small army, but like we need more troops, and like that requires more resources. So like, is outside funding the answer to that? Potentially. I don't really think it's that important. I think original content that we sell is probably more the route. At least that's like what every single other industry is doing, and especially like the Premier Lacrosse League. That's now on ESPN. You can follow their entire blueprint from day one, actually even before that, the origin of the league, 5 guys in a room creating a league with a format built to bring more eyes and viewers to their sport through licensing deals. And they documented the whole fucking thing. And it's on their YouTube channel from like years ago. And now they're on ESPN and they're basically a content house. And I think we're all doing a really good job of creating this content, but we need to centralize it and find a way to, like not make Art the only guy who he's doing everything, man. This Art is managing hundreds and hundreds of terabytes per event. And that is an impossible task to ask anybody.
So before we continue, Dylan, maybe you should introduce and explain who exactly Art is, because I don't think most people have any idea who that is. Like that would be watching this outside of the media guys.
He's the GOAT, and like you'll know who he is because he's got some like thing dripped over his head like this, and he's filming on a monopod, usually with like a red camera. He's been a part of like paintball's history, archiving it for many, many, many years under many different iterations of the sport. I think he was part of Dirter's crew. He's made things that everybody has probably watched in our game, and it's kind of criminal that more people don't know about Art. But what he does for the sport is really impressive. And Defining Moments is his latest work. The first episode has released on Go Sports. It is tough because there's a paywall there. And I think Verbal explained it really well. And Ryan, you probably heard it too, that like, well, I think one of the reasons your guys' work is so successful is because it doesn't cost a single dollar to watch it, and you have to generate revenue in one way. So right now the answer is a paywall, but the future is obviously not that. And I think everyone's aware of that, which is cool. It's just like, when do we get there and how do we get there? That I wish I knew the answer to that. Isaac, you probably have more experience on this because you have a history working in the industry too, don't you, with Dye? Like,
yeah, I mean, I think that to grow paintball media, you have to grow paintball first. And one of the big questions that's in that is, how did we get away from that? And it happened when the format changed. And Dylan, like you said, X-Ball is extremely fun to play. It is an absolute blast. But if I try and tell my mom how you win at X-Ball, it's a lengthy conversation.
I don't even fucking know.
Back in the day, I'd say, I could tell my mom, well, this is capture the flag, and you know how you win at capture the flag, right, Mom? And she'd be like, yeah, I get it. Okay, so that's how you win. So I think that first, before paintball media grows, paintball needs to appeal to a larger audience, and paintball has gone away from the larger audience, because if you look at the single family, right, with kids and animals, dogs and cats, what appeals more to that demographic? Playing point after point after point, being an athlete, or a game of capture the flag? Capture the flag. It appeals more to that audience. Yeah. So if we can bring the highest level of paintball, tournament paintball, and still appeal to that audience, that's when our sport grows, right?
Yep, I completely agree. And I think that we haven't seen the final version of the sport yet. And Tom Cole, I've heard him say that many times, and I think that dude's awesome. I know what he's doing. It's ridiculously hard. Do you think like it's hurting paintball that like paintball is not in the name of our sport? Like, we're playing X-Ball. I don't know.
That hurts too, dude. It does.
Is this Christmas ball? Like, what? But then you look back at like, okay, paintball on television, when I told you in our episodes, Isaac, like Fox Sports Net and Paintball 2 Extreme would cover a format of paintball that is completely different. And we kind of play that version, I think, at Mech X-Ball. It's except for the outside of the mechanical part, I think it's like halves like any other sport minus soccer. It's points, it's lines like hockey. You can clearly, there's a moment like in the pits where like I could interview Archie. Unfortunately, like the system we have today, for example, like, dude, Archie just had an amazing match. He helped Dynasty win. I ask him to interview. I am looking at the clock. I have 3 minutes. It's ticking down. He's tired, but like he's willing to do the interview. I'm like, fuck yeah, I got Archie. So I'm talking to him. He predicted this win in a vision he saw. And I'm asking him these questions, and my interview gets cut off because it's like they moved up the time an extra minute. So now I'm at 2 minutes. It's like, what the how am I gonna? I'm interviewing a GOAT right now. I'm trying to tell this man's story, like how Tom Brady would be after he wins a Super Bowl. Like they come straight to him on the field and they're like, "Tell me about how that feels to just do that really cool thing that you did." And there's no time in football because there's 2 more teams coming on, and the fans are like, "What the fuck am I watching? I'm here to see Dynasty. Who are these guys?"
Yeah,
you know,
exactly.
It's hard. It's really hard, but it's what we have to do because it's a barnstorming league where it's touring, like we don't have home bases, which I don't know that would be the answer either. But I think playing 5 events at one field that is a paintball park is like, come to Paintball Fit. If we had all 5 events there, like you could build something infrastructure around that, and then you continue to. And I think they're trying to do that in Philly. I don't fucking know, but
that's one thing too, Dylan, is like I think that paintball events, they should be held at paintball fields that already exist. Like, why are we going to like some parking lot or some dirt lot?
Yeah, let's build 2 more fields at Fit. Now we have 5 fields.
With that.
You disagree with that? Yeah, a lot of people do. It's
so I disagree and I agree. I disagree with doing events at already established fields. And my reasoning for that is simple. A lot of times when you build a paintball field, you're doing it on a very limited budget. So you make everything to the exact specs for play, not for spectatorship or viewtatorship or even camera crews. I love Paintball Fit, right? Favorite field in the wintertime for sure, because it's nice and not cold like here at home. I love Blast Camp, but I tell Virgil every wintertime, I don't like you as much Paintball Fit right now because there's no snow on the ground there. Now in the summertime, I'll look at JD and say, I don't like you as much as I like Blast Camp because it's 100 degrees here and I'm breathing water, JD. Like, you go to Blast Camp and it's still like 75. You're like, oh, this is beautiful. But I digress. So like the good example this year was Giant Party Sports, right? When we did, or even Dave Bain's field, Capital Edge, right? Capital Edge Paintball Park, I think is what it's called. Those fields don't have the sidelines to support a reffing staff, a filming staff, the iconic wanting to add statisticians to the field. It's not there. Like, we don't have the room at an established park because an established park puts just enough turf, just enough netting, and just enough poles to make it work. The upside to the traveling circus that we get is that they set up excess, right? Like, I wish the D side on the pro field looked like the snake side. If we could ever just, my theory is the reason why the Doritos side of the pro field is such a shallow sideline is because they want to create like a splash zone effect with the paint for people sitting in VIP. Like, they want them to kind of get splattered by paint. But I wish they would give us that same amount of depth on the D side that they give us snake side, because filming angles are important, right? And the more we can scoot back or scoot over, the more it allows us to maybe get on that snake and line up that shot where the guy's coming out and they're shooting at each other, right? You can't really hit that unless you have sidelines, because unfortunately there's not a perfect lens for filming paintball unless you have a Sony like Verbo with a Tamron 30-150 that they'll only make for an E mount because Canon hates releasing the RF. Sorry, that's a personal thing. I can't buy a lens.
No idea what you said.
blah 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 blah
blah blah blah blah blah jibber jabber camera talk.
Rabble.
Because of how paintball works, we don't have a perfect lens, right? That allows you to be really wide or really zoomed in and allows you to get around bunkers and stuff. And so, sorry, I'm actually trying to get Verbal to come in on this. I asked him if he was around to hop in right now, like right now. So Verbal and me have talked about, so like I said, I don't think current paintball parks are the answer because they weren't built with this in mind, right? Now, I'm not saying we couldn't knock down poles at a current paintball park and expand and do construction to make it happen, but like it's somewhere like Paintball Fit, I've had this discussion with them. The problem is they don't own the land, so they're not gonna. They don't, it's kind of one of those things. Do we invest? A lot of paintball parks don't actually own the land they're on.
True.
So there's this balance to how much do we invest in a place that the landlord can simply say, I'm not renewing your lease.
Yeah.
So I think, Tom Cole, you brought up Philly, and I've heard rumors that they were trying to get like 5 established paintball stadiums, would say, around the United States, where they would be able to practice and play paintball when they weren't doing big events. So my play on this, and this is kind of a birth of me and Verbal. Like Verbal's had a lot of input on this idea, is we moved the professional paintball league to more like a Monday night football Friday on. There goes Dylan's like, I got you. Here's the schedule set up, the day breakdown. Brian said he can get on in 2 minutes. Can you send him a link in Instagram?
Yeah, I sent it to him.
Nice. This turned into a party of all my friends. Zeke, you join the party. Are you going to ICPL?
Yeah, I'm leaving Thursday.
Nice.
Yeah,
if you ever need a place to stay, let us know. Like, we still got an extra bunk bed place. Me, Verbal, 40 Media, a couple of us. We like to get media houses of guys, and this is where we talk about these ideas. He got food. Verbal will be on in 2 minutes.
I'm playing, so
oh, nice. Who are you playing with?
Aftershock.
Oh, where do you live?
Tennessee.
Okay.
No, I live in Columbia, which is like 45 minutes south of Nashville.
Nice.
I just like going to the Smoky Mountains. I'm a big fan of everybody rent a cabin and go to what's it called? There's a town in the Smoky Mountains we always go to. I can't remember what it's called off the top of my head. But anyways, back to what I was saying. So you go to more like a Monday night football, Sunday night football kind of theme, right? We stopped doing these events where we play all the matches for a season in 4 or 5 events, where in 3 days we have to have 20 teams battle it out back to back to back to back to back, to where we have no time to tell the story. So like Dylan said, it's a hybrid of all this. So like, imagine if we could do 2 matches a week at location X, right? Say we have Iron Man and Infamous, and then San Antonio, X Factor, and Dynasty meet up on this date, on this Friday, and they play their matches. But the matches are 2 10-minute or 2 20-minute halves. And so that way it's more digestible, because when you switch sides every point, like, it becomes so hard for people to follow. Like, it's like, what side of the field? Who am I rooting for? Where'd they go? Like, why are we switching sides? Like, what just happened? It's so confusing. And then also, like, shout out pod runners. Like, they would love to be able to just go to one side for a whole half. But like, bring halves back, right? Like, don't swap every point. Swap halves. And I would say also, because we would see teams build rhythms on how that half of the field plays, because no half plays the same based on hundreds of variables. And real high level players understand what I'm saying. Spectators and media guys, some people will say, well, why not? And it's just, there can be a dip in Snake 1 on this side and a raise in Dorito 2 on that side, and a shoot shot. Like, it just, there's little variables, right? It's just like, you can build 2 Chevy Corvettes off the line, and one's going to be a 1/10 of a second faster in a quarter mile than the other, because of some weird little variable in how it was assembled versus the other one. So we go to these weekly matches, right? And we do it in 2 10-minute halves, 2 20-minute halves, much like old school, or I 100% agree with Dylan. We take a lot of the Paintball Fit Mech X Ball format, which is based off of the older format of MPPL and stuff. Maybe even bring back the penalty box, because that's another thing, right? Like, a penalty in paintball kills a match. A minor or a major, especially, it ends it, versus it's over. Like, it makes no sense, right? Like as a viewer, something happened, a red flag, and all of a sudden 3 players are gone. Like, I'm watching this on TV, I'm like, there's no way, you don't know what the ref saw, right? Like, it's not like baseball, basketball, or football where fouls are obvious, right? Like, this guy obviously traveled. This guy obviously was goaltending. Like you can see the fence happen. So I think
not like a holding in the NFL. It's like holding call. You're like, what's the flag for?
Right.
A lot of times you got to find out later from the ref.
You do, but a lot of times they can still zoom in and show you where he was holding or where he.
Well, they do. They do the replay.
Right. Yeah. But I'm saying in paintball, because of the bunkers and everything, it's not possible. We don't have a clear line of view. You can't see the whole field.
It just needs to be post-produced.
Well, here's what we should do.
The thing is
change the format altogether. Like get rid of X-ball and have one game. Forget the matches. There's too much going on. You know, and if you have one game, like back in the day when I played, like when you were in the semifinals or the finals, that game meant everything.
Right.
Okay, that game, and therefore the moves that you make within that game were high risk. It either meant that you were going to blow it for your team, or you did it for all the marbles and you're about to win the game for your team. And in a game like that, when someone cheats, you can have a ref run over like this, signaling that he played on, flag goes up, a couple players come off the team, and it's like, I can see the impact that made on this single game because it was 7-on-7 and now it's 4-on-7. Like, so I think the format could evolve as well to make it more viewer friendly. But you know what? We should ask Verbal because he's here.
Yeah.
Hello.
And of course, Verbal has his backlight set up. I set up my front light. I'm like, I'm going good. He's like, I need 5 minutes to get this.
He's got a laser back there.
I just had to turn them all on, right?
I love that we all go into a wide shot now. This is much cooler.
But it's still proportionate. I like it.
Yeah. What's up, Verbal?
Not much. How's it going?
What were we just talking about, Isaac?
We're talking about how to grow paintball media, and I guess paintball in general, right?
I mean, how to make the sport more digestible in a viewer's format. And we had started to have, me and you have this discussion a lot, and Monday Night Football, we need to have 1 or 2 matches in a place, and even like Dylan said, post-produce, like this whole, like it needs to be done more like the NFL or the NBA, where it's set matches happening every week, and then World Cup can be like a huge March Madness tournament, sure, where the pros show up, and then the other 4 events are just regionals for semi-pros and down. Like, keep the big NXL going, right? Like, keep it going, but you have the traveling event be for the semi-pro and WNXL and all the divisionals, so they still keep that going. But then the pros, you move them to a weekly or bi-weekly play schedule at select stadiums where you could set up Dylan's automated idea.
Yeah. Primetime paintball coming soon.
That's the thing too. You could still have them, play at some of the NXLs, because even the NBA was talking about an in-season tournament. This says NBA in-season tournament could begin as soon as 23-24 with the prizes for final teams. So, I mean, that, like you could still have the pros go to an NXL, but I do think moving forward, definitely having weekly matches, somewhere probably central would be pretty good, depending on weather. You got to figure that out too. But you could have a location that, you could have a couple teams come out, have 3-4 teams come out and have them all play each other. And I don't know. I think that's definitely where it needs to go, instead of just being standalone tournaments.
Right. And then like outside of the paintball, if you I'm going to use Paintball Fit as an example because it is my field of dreams, and many others as well. Insert your own field here, do whatever you want. But like, say we do what Verbal just said. We bring 2 teams in, Dynasty versus Houston Heat, whatever. We not only film the most primetime version of paintball, I think documented in a while, but then we film them off the field. Like, what did Houston Heat do 2 nights before? Did they go out and get drunk together and have fun and really just like bond as a team? And then we tell that story. So like, what did they do before the tournament comes, or the match comes? And then what did they do directly after? They don't fly home at 2 hours after their match. Like, we see them either bask in their glory or they wallow in their defeat. And like, that's the drama I want to see as a fan. And I think that would be our version of our sports, like F1 Drive to Survive. It's not the same, but you get to see some players being their true selves, and they're fun people.
If we could in any way, like, to quote Russell Jackson in this. If you can bring me a pilot of paintball that's like the F1 Drive to Survive, I will bring you $10 million to produce it. Plus, right? Like, but here's the answer to this that I like being the unpopular guy, right? Like, I like saying the nasty truth no one wants to admit. And pro players aren't held to any form of accountability by sponsors to have to do the interview, to have to take the time at tournaments. I mean, they are and they aren't. Like, you know, some are and some aren't. Like, I mean, don't get me wrong, a lot of them are great about it, right? I'm not trying to say players are bad about this, but it's kind of like there's the guys in football that they're like, well, I'm just here so I don't get fined, right? Like, it's kind of how you prevent them from running off 2 hours after the event into the flight. Like, they have to come to the press conference.
And that's fair, right?
They have to go meet the DLX media guy to do a post-event recap. Like, because I can't tell you how hard it was as a big company media guy to get the interviews I need, especially after things don't go their way. Once their mindset changes, right? Once it sucks, right? I feel for you. You lost and it didn't turn how you did, but a lot of times these guys shut down. And anybody would, right? Like, you put this much heart and soul into something, you shut down. Like, you see it happen all the time. But Joe Burrow still has to go up there and tell ABC what he thinks about Pat Mahomes beating his ass, right? Like, and I don't really care about football, but I know that's what happened last night or the night before. Everybody says the refs won it or whatever, but I mean, at the end of the day, that's the difference, right? In Drive to Survive, in the NBA and other sports, players don't have a choice, right? It's not a, do you want to come do this interview? It's, you're going to go to that interview, I'm going to fine you $50,000. Insert correct. I'm going to fine you one gun. I'm going to fine you your entry. I'm going to fine you 10 cases of, I don't know, whatever, right? You have to make it obviously fair. And I don't want to see anyone get fined. That's not what I'm saying. I don't want anybody to have to pay anything, but there has to be a forced system to not give players the chance to shy away from the part of the story they don't want you to see or they don't want to tell you. There's a lot of players that don't want you to see it's like the Facebook or Instagram effect, right? Like, they only want to show you the great stuff, the cheering, the celebrating. But as a spectator, you got to see it all. I need the full emotional roller coaster.
I think they have it, right? Like, that's what Lauren Kelly's supposed to do, right? She was at event
this year. She was at Cup.
Yeah.
She's not there.
So, but I think Go Sports might have what you're trying to describe in mind.
I think it's so limited though at the event though. You can't cover it all. Go Sports can cover in a live event. They can pick one of the 4 teams that played in the split deck before they have to get to the next set. Like, I agree. They do the best that they can. But that's Go Sports, and that's asking one person. I'm saying, how do we get all of them? Because there's a lot of stories we should tell or that I would love to see told that aren't told, right? Like, yeah, Go Sports is going to bring over Ryan Greenspan and Alex Frazier. But what about Kyle Bowen? What about, Jonah Jameson? Jonah. We know Jonah. What about Kyle Berry, and some of these guys come on there, but I'm listing the teams that are the top 4 or 5 or the kids that, we don't know. What about the Zach Hogue when he was on San Diego Aftermath? What about, the kids we don't know, the stories we don't see, the guys that haven't been on the spotlight for the last 20 years. I mean, I love Greenspan, Alex Frazier, Goldman. I love filming them, talking to them. They have a great story. They have the best minds in the game, but I also think that we're not necessarily showing the future. We're not, part of what the NBA does and part of what these other sports do is they focus on the rookies more than the veterans when it comes to the storytelling. I mean, just look at the draft alone. Look at the combines. Like, let's get a televised combine, like not the BKI. I mean, I think BK is awesome, but let's have the actual league, the NXL, put on a true professional combine where players come out and they spot the top talent from semi-pro teams. And of course, now I'm going to have 10 semi-pro teams go, you're not taking, but this is the evolution, right? Like, unless you go pro, your semi-pros there, you're there to feed the pros. Like it's a scale down. It's big fish eat small fish. That's the way of the world. That's AAA ball feeds AA ball feeds single A ball feeds pro ball. Like it's how this happens. You know, high school feeds college, college feeds pro. Like, you know, there can only be 20 spots. Only be 20.
What if BKI communicated with the NXL? What if the NXL communicate? Like, what if all these entities in paintball, because we are very small,
there needs to be media sources. Like it has to be out of.
And they communicated with you. They communicate with Ryguy, and they communicated with Verbal, and they communicated with Dylan, and everyone worked together because we have all the ingredients.
So okay, here's the side note: no NDAs, no non-disclosure agreements. Everybody's free to post all of their content how they choose to. And because no one source gets to control all the funding and profits off of it. You truly want to grow it. You truly want to let everybody see it. Now, that's the problem with it. When you start involving BKI, I like BKI, but it is a business. So if we bring BKI in, then they're going to say, well, wait, who gets to film this and who gets to make the money off of it? Because BKI is a subscription service that makes their money off selling monthly content. Go Sports is the same thing. They're a service
that's unavoidable, though. It's unavoidable, Ryguy, because it's the dominance hierarchy. Whenever you're the best at something, there's going to be the peak, right? And the peak is going to get to have those opportunities to do the filming. The peak is going to have the opportunities to be the class that teaches everything.
It's unavoidable when you want to set a glass ceiling. If you want to really see how big something can go, break the monopoly and give everyone a free, fair fight.
What does it look like for paintball, though?
I mean, it looks like when the Bell Company got broken up, and all of a sudden we saw Singular, AT&T, Verizon, Sprint. Like at one point in time, there was one singular phone company in all of America. Everybody went through the Bell Company, right? It didn't matter. The U.S. government came in, they broke up the monopoly, and all of a sudden, you know, Cricket, T-Mobile, you know, and this is a perfect world like situation, right? This is just saying in my mind how I think it works. But to tell me that I have to include BKI and Go Sports to make this work, I strongly disagree.
They may be the best tools to do so. That's all I'm suggesting.
I think they can help with the organization, but I think honestly I could get DLX, Planet Eclipse, and the sponsors to want to help structure it. And they get access to the media content, and you bring in you bring in the me's, the Verbals, the Ryan Moffats, the Dylans, you bring them all in. You bring in the Enrique's, you bring in the Sam All-Ins, you bring in, you know, Soulless, who does his, you know, you bring in everybody. Because, like, it's kind of like this, you let everybody come in, you let everybody do the media, the media in the format that they want, and you let them share it how they want. To where then you allow YouTube to do what YouTube's made to do. It allows people to have their own curated watching experience based on how they prefer to digest content. Because one of the greatest things in paintball I've seen is, you know, I love the in-your-face reels, right? Like I like being the top 10 highlight guy. But you have Soulless, who makes some amazing videos where he breaks down and educates you on the sport. But his videos will never go past divisional paintball, because there's an NDA that will prevent him from ever being able to do that on the pro field. So some could argue that, you know, let him break the NDA, let him do his videos on the pro field, and you could offer a thing where people are now getting educated about what's happening on the sport. Because right now in our current format, how it's live, how it's pressed so together, not even Matty Marshall has enough time to break down what's really happening and educate new viewers on what's going on.
Yeah, he don't even have enough time to piss between matches. That guy's work. Verbal, what do you think, man? What's next for what we're gonna do in media for paintball?
I don't know. I keep thinking about how in any other sport you go and you get media as a media outlet, and it's not sponsored by companies. I don't know if paintball's there yet, but that's an interesting one. Like, you know, you go to a Mavs game, you get a media pass. Nike doesn't have a media pass, right? So I think let the media be the media, not, you know, ran by companies. So
I don't know. I mean, so yes and no, because then they're in place as a singularity gatekeeper system, right? And so we look at their situation we have right now, where Gary Baum is in charge of the media passes, right? Like he's in charge of the NXL's media. Like Gary Baum's the guy. But even having an honest conversation with Gary Baum, he will tell you that he's a photographer and doesn't understand video and really doesn't care about it. So if we went about it that way, would we have any video guys?
Well, shit. Let's just game theory a whole new league right now. Okay. This is what we're going to do. We get 30 players. Who wants to commit 1 month of their life to the game of paintball? You're coming to Paintball Fit. We're housing you amongst paintball players within the greater Dallas area. What do we do from there? We film you training. There's 30 of you. There's 6 people on a team. There's 5 teams. It could be pros amongst really great divisional players. We show you guys practicing 3 days a week during the night at Paintball Fit. We show you playing on the weekends. We show you working the field, cleaning the shit. Now we have a proof of concept for an alternative to a league like the NXL, which is a great league and it does what it does really well, but it sounds like we just need to build something else and then see how that works. Like Astra has done and attempted to do. The videos weren't perfect because we only had 3 people doing video. But if we had 12 cameras there for me to post-produce in that edit, like, bro, I would have fucking destroyed it.
Let's just look at the DJI mics that have came out since then and other stuff, like just the gear evolution. I mean, and that's kind of where like, look, I completely get why Go Sports has to have NDAs and why you don't want competing, because they need to make their money. And I'm not trying to take away from that. Like, they have their own post-production. And their post-production has a value that, I guess what I'm saying is, if you are Go Sports and you fear that a man with 1 camera is going to take your money, then I think maybe we should look at adding in that man to your business and using his ideas. Like, there needs to be an evolution in the process. Because I guess for me, in order to spark innovation, there has to be competition. In order to have competition, you can't control it. I mean, you can control it, sure. I mean, I love, again, Bark, and let's furthermore, like, it's again monopolized, right? Like, if you can't even bring in a second live webcast to the NXL to compete to see if someone has a better method. I mean, which again, I get, like, why would Go Sports want to give up their investment, right? Because they've invested a ton of time and money and energy into what they've built. But I think at this point, like, there's got to be some value in releasing the reins some to see what other people can do. And I mean, there's always deals. Like, I've worked deals with Darren, right? So, like, I give Darren access to all my footage at the end of every year for the Reckoning or for Sundays to help them make that, to get me some leeway to do stuff I want to do. And those relationships can be had. But I don't know. I feel like a second broadcast channel or a second option would just spark a competition and innovation to push this to the next level.
I agree. I also think that we can get there without creating a secondary broadcast, because secondary broadcast also creates confusion for the end viewer. Remember, paintball is incredibly small. We are a tiny demographic of people. So we got 2 different broadcasts broadcasting the same thing.
Tournament
it's like,
paintball.
well, which tournament paintball? It's like, which one do we watch? So I believe that the most powerful thing that Go Sports and paintball media and everyone in paintball can do is grab the top guys in social media, grab the top guys in from the industry, Go Sports, manufacturers, etc., and have a weekly mastermind on a specific topic each week. And one of those specific topics could be, how do we grow this game? How do we get paintball players to the field? And field owners are in this mastermind. And these field owners say, okay, well, you know what? We need to have our refs be salespeople and continue to reinforce to the player that they made the right decision to come out this weekend. Right. It starts at the ground level. And if paintball media is involved in these conversations, we can grow together. And I think that's what this is just my opinion,
Yeah.
but I believe that paintball needs to take its current resources instead of reinventing things. Take its current resources, take its current people with skills, and get them to start working together instead of competing so damn much. That's all we do is compete with each other.
I agree with that.
Work together.
When I say compete, I mean in a healthier way than what we have now. I just mean like,
Yeah.
I kind of mean how like me and Verbal compete. Like me and Verbal, I'd say he's my biggest competition as far as like, okay, what he get for views, man, he's kicking my ass. When I'm doing it on my personal stuff, but at the end of the day, like there's not a single time I won't celebrate his victory or he won't celebrate mine with me. Like at the end of the day, there's not a day I won't be like, fuck yeah, you got that new piece of gear, doggy, or he got mine. Like, I mean, there's no one who can help me spend my money better. He knows it. He's like, fuck yeah, tilt or bright tangerine.
Yep.
We need it. I mean, like, but unfortunately, that's not the case across the board with everybody. And it would be awesome if it was. Yeah, but I guess with the combine thing, I was saying where the Formula One to drive is, when you look at maybe off the field, there's just in the other sports news media, there's so many more outlets, and it's just the players are forced. So like, even though NBC or who gets to broadcast basketball, when they go to the press conference, there's 12 different media outlets in there for the interview to share it, right? And that's kind of the thing, right? Like there's no time where all the players go to a place where it's just media and not fans and not some DJ going bar 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 bar. Can you hear me now?
He had me lit.
Edit that out, Dylan. Edit that out.
The DJ was awesome at that.
I could go back to my military days on that DJ stage one day.
Oh, dude, that's the NXL needs to hire Rye Guy Media to be our DJ. We've solved the entire paintball.
There wouldn't be no DJ. There's no music. You want music?
Just the play button,
in, baby. Messing with my audio. I got to worry about Gary Bomb's drone noise enough, right? Like at least that thing's kicking out some fire photos. But I would love
that broadcast.
I'd love to see that thing go to video mode on the broadcast, right? Like
liability problem, but it might be a liability problem, and it kind of does the same thing that the cable cam does. But I think the God angle of a drone really shows how paintball is chess, because A, it looks like a chessboard from the sky. B, you see 10 players at a time, and C, both A and B were perfect answers. So that's all you know, that fucking thing should be in the sky flying all the time.
That's another thing, is how we film paintball. That is seeing the right evolution.
So here's the balance, though, or here's the Queen's Gambit, or the question: how do you film paintball without degrading the integrity of the game? Because part of what makes paintball what it is that you can't see the full field, right? So the reason why Alex Frazier at 40 years old can be the top player in the league is because that 21-year-old stud can't just run through reckless like a bull, because he doesn't necessarily know where you are. So when you start putting that God angle and that drone following, you're bird dogging the guy the whole way, and you're removing the mystery, because
top down camera, literally top down, does not bird
that
dog.
Drone has to move with you to keep that top.
It sits at 50 above it at 100 feet in the air. You see every bunker from corner to corner, and it can literally sit there like a fucking tripod. How's that bird dogging anyone?
Oh, okay. You're talking about a full field view. I thought you meant like covering one player at like a closer angle, because I've heard a lot of people argue that you should have like the behind the shoulder first person shooter like view, be able to see what they see, but like doing it with drones, and there's just no way to do that with a drone without giving away the player's position. But I
have a bunch of drones. There are a bunch of drones flying all above you. You don't know what they're looking at. Have a camera in each bunker, on the front of the bunker and the back of the bunker, and it's just massive amounts of video intake happening. And then
you'll
someone
never
like
hear
Dylan
the
goes in there and cuts it all up.
Just hear.
You just recently got a drone. What?
I think it's awesome.
What is your favorite part about like aerial cinematography?
It's very different. I don't know. It is cool to see the whole perspective of what's going on. My thing is, I think we just need hockey holes in the side of the net, because then you can just put the camera through, like they do in hockey, and then you have a little thing to cover it up when you need to. But you could just have guys filming from the outside, not giving away positions too.
Amazing.
Just a thought. I think that would be best though for like the tape battles. Like you think about the battles down the Dorito side, right? Like you could have on the end line, you could have a hole in the net, so you don't even have to get blasted. I mean, sure, your lens will get hit. Obviously, that's part of it, but you would get this incredible footage of the tape battles, which are super important, I think.
Best idea of the day already. I like that.
So you're talking about like in between the actual netting and the field, you have another set of netting?
No, think
that's
about
why it'd be easier on the
hole
baseline
that has a netting flap over it,
right?
That you could clip down. So put a hole in the net on the backside, right where you're walking. Put a hole in it, so I could stick my camera through that hole and film down the tape line from the back line without being on the field. I'll never move. Right. And then when I leave that hole, I can pull the flap back down and like carabiner, clip, zip tie, whatever, back in place. Yeah. No, I think what Verbal just said.
You could have a guy sitting there in a chair and just filming that angle the whole time too.
Yep. What do you think about what Dylan said earlier about like all the cameramen are going to be replaced by artificial intelligence and cyborgs?
I mean, probably eventually. I mean, it'll be a little bit, but one day.
Yeah, look at the NBA right now. Like, especially during the bubble, a lot of their cameras for the live broadcast were operated by motion lines, like that just ran a track, a dude on a joystick. It looks like a computer. I think the benefit to that is that, like, well, I'm going to go back to Verbal's point, because I think he made a really good point by saying that, like, if we allowed for the cinematographers and photographers to not have to worry about getting shot, I think we could solve the problem of not knowing how to tell the story of how a point is won, which is critical to paintball. But also, I think an unintended consequence of that would be you bring in filmmakers and photographers from completely outside of the sport that never would have came otherwise, because they know that they don't have to have the fear of themselves getting beat to shit or their really expensive gear. And now we elevate paintball media by having goats from other from the real filmmaking industry, like coming in and working on our broadcast. Because I imagine that's got to be one of the biggest strikes against becoming a paintball media person. It's like, dude, it sucks to get lit up, man. It's the only time you'll film and get shot at.
It's also like the damage it does to your gear. Yeah. Filming with a mask on, that alone has its own challenge, right? Like a curved lens over your eyes, trying to like.
It's hard to get your exposure.
Yeah, I mean, I think Verbals has probably two of the best ideas. One, the portholes on the netting, that's mind blowing. But then also like his idea that me and him have talked about, where it's just Monday Night Football, right? You're doing 2 matches a week at a stadium where it's spread out, and you can do it live and then even offer a post-production, but like have enough point between matches to allow interviews, have enough time. Like the speedball format where part of it is because we're trying to do 20 teams in 3 days, right? So like if we can spread this out to 12 weeks, 14 weeks, right? Like 14 Mondays, like an NFL season or whatever, and then have a match last an hour, a full hour, or hour and a half, 2 hours, right? Whatever a football game is. But a full X-ball match lasts 2 hours because you play 2 20-minute halves, and then you have 3 timeouts, and then you have a halftime, and then have enough break between like full board wipe, flag hung, points scored, whatever, where it's a reset where you can get the feedback of the players and you can reset gear and have time to swap things. Like that's the other challenge that no one talks about, right? Like you even see Darren and all the guys on Go Sports and the limitations of battery life and being able to swap gear fast in between points to not miss things. Like the game itself is played at such a fast pace that if you blink as a cameraman, if you have one issue, you just missed it all, right? Like my battery died, I went and changed it. Oh my God, Alex Frazier or Dylan Boehm and that dude stand off and shoot each other 50 times is the greatest clip, but I'm changing my memory card because.
Or you got shot in the lens.
Right? Clean your lens, right? Like you can't have it's impossible to have $50,000 in lenses to swap lenses on the field. You got to clean it. Like there's no time for error because of this format. So we miss so much.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate you guys' time here. You guys got some great insight. We'll definitely do this again. Any final thoughts from anyone?
Yeah, I got one. The two of the guys that are on this screen are both paintball patrons, and the things that they do from their own homes, from their heart, like from inside of their hearts and off the paintball field is truly special. And we're lucky to have both of them in this game.
But Verbal's definitely better. And
Verbal's amazing.
Dylan is by far the most unsung hero of editing in paintball that keeps so much content going that people have no idea about because he is willing to let me and Verbal and other people just help us keep our work flowing.
Just wait. Just wait.
Oh, yeah.
He's cooking. Here we go.
Oh, yeah.
Cooking. Chef Boyardee in the building.
2023 is going to be crazy for everybody. I think it's going to be awesome.
Absolutely.
Fun to do this again.
Thanks, y'all.
Later, guys.
Thank you.